I pulled into Christopher's cul-de-sac that Tuesday afternoon, my old Ford pickup rumbling to a stop under the shade of an oak tree. The handmade tool chest I'd spent 3 weeks crafting sat secured in the truck bed, wrapped in heavy canvas and tied down with marine rope. Solid walnut with brass corners, every joint hand-cut and fitted perfectly. No power tools for the joinery. All traditional mortise and tenon, the way my father taught me 40 years ago. My name's Anthony Patterson, and I'm 58 years old. Worked 32 years as a mechanical engineer at Tampa Bay Systems before taking early retirement last year to run a small restoration shop out of my garage. Mostly vintage cars and furniture now, the kind of work where you can see the results of your effort every day. Christopher had finally bought his first house after 3 years of searching. And I figured a proper tool chest would serve him better than flowers or some generic housewarming gift from a store. But something felt wrong the moment I stepped out of the truck. The street was too quiet for a Tuesday afternoon housewarming party. No cars packed along the curbs, no sounds of conversation drifting from the backyard, no smell of barbecue smoke in the air. I'd driven 45 minutes through Tampa traffic, expecting to find my son celebrating with friends and neighbors. Instead, I found an empty driveway with telltale signs of a recent party. A few deflated silver balloons tangled in the hedge, their ribbons trailing in the light breeze. Barbecue sauce stains darkened the concrete near the garage. A paper plate sat wedged against the mailbox post, smeared with what looked like coleslaw. I walked up the driveway slowly, my work boots crunching on scattered confetti that sparkled in the afternoon sun. The front porch still had streamer remnants hanging from the columns, and the welcome mat showed scuff marks from dress shoes and sneakers. Party shoes, not work boots like mine. That's when I heard the van pull up behind me. City Plumbing Services, white van with ladders on top. The guy who got out was maybe 40, tool belt slung low around his hips, carrying a drain snake and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on a Tuesday afternoon. He nodded toward the house as he passed me. "Back for more work already? Thought you guys just finished celebrating this place last weekend." I stopped walking. "Celebrating?" He paused at the side gate, squinting at me in the afternoon sun. "Yeah, the big housewarming party. Had the whole driveway tented, professional catering setup. Really nice spread." He gestured toward the empty driveway. "You must be Christopher's dad, right? He mentioned his old man was supposed to come by for something." My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step going downstairs. "Last weekend?" "Sunday. Started around 11 in the morning. Ran till evening from what I could see. Had quite a crowd, maybe 50, 60 people. Looked like a real celebration." He shrugged and headed for the backyard. "Nice family event." I stood there in the empty driveway, staring at the house that represented everything I'd worked toward as a father. This wasn't just any house. It was the house I'd helped make possible. When Christopher needed $15,000 for the down payment last year, I'd wired it without hesitation. When his consulting business needed startup capital and equipment, I'd co-signed the loan and started sending monthly support checks. For 16 months straight, I'd transferred $800 every month to help cover his business equipment lease and office rent. No formal contract, no repayment schedule, just trust between father and son. The kind of trust I thought we'd built over 29 years. I walked back to my truck and sat behind the wheel for a long moment, engine ticking as it cooled. My hands rested on the steering wheel, calloused from decades of working with tools, building things that lasted. The tool chest in the back represented 60 hours of careful work, each piece selected and shaped with Christopher in mind. My phone showed no missed calls, no texts, nothing. The last message from Christopher was from 3 days ago. "Looking forward to having you see the place soon, Dad. We'll set something up." I thought about all the times Christopher had called over the past year, always needing something. help with the business loan paperwork, advice on contractor negotiations, a quick $500 transfer because cash flow is tight this month, Dad. I'd always said yes, always been there, always been the reliable father who stepped up when needed. But apparently not reliable enough to warrant an invitation to his housewarming party. The drive home took an hour in evening traffic, plenty of time to think. I kept replaying the plumber's words. Quite a crowd, professional catering, real celebration. The kind of party you plan weeks in advance, not a last-minute gathering. The kind of party where you send proper invitations and make sure family knows about it. At home, I backed the truck into the garage and left the tool chest right where it was. Max, my old German shepherd, greeted me at the door with his usual enthusiasm, tail wagging and nose nudging my hand for attention. At least somebody was happy to see me. I poured myself a bourbon and sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to call Christopher right then and ask what the hell was going on. But another part, the part that had learned hard lessons about pride and dignity over 58 years, told me to wait, to think, to find out exactly what kind of celebration my son had thrown without me. That evening, I opened LinkedIn to update some contacts from the Engineering Association. I'd been meaning to reconnect with old colleagues since retirement, maybe drum up some consulting work. That's when I saw the post that changed everything. Dan Martinez had shared photos from what he called a fantastic housewarming celebration. Dan and I had worked together for 8 years at Tampa Bay Systems before he moved to Miami. Good engineer? Solid guy? The kind of colleague who remembered your birthday and always contributed to office collections. Seeing his name pop up in my LinkedIn feed felt like finding an old friend. But his post hit me like a punch to the gut. There was Christopher in a navy blazer I'd never seen before, standing next to Michelle in some flowery dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. Behind them hung a professional banner reading, "Home Sweet Home," in gold letters, the kind you order weeks in advance from a party supply company. What made my blood run cold, though, was seeing Richard Williams front and center in the group photo. Christopher's father-in-law had his arms around both Christopher and Michelle, positioned exactly where I should have been. The man who'd contributed nothing to Christopher's education, never helped with his business startup, never sent a single support check, but somehow rated the place of honor at the celebration of the house I'd helped buy. I scrolled through more photos, each one twisting the knife deeper. The dining room table set with Michelle's grandmother's china, place cards written in her careful calligraphy script. There, clear as day, was a card marked Dad, placed in front of the head chair. Not Richard or Mr. Williams, just Dad. Richard Williams raising a champagne toast, while Christopher smiled and nodded like a proud son. Richard Williams cutting a ceremonial ribbon in front of the mailbox I'd helped pay for. Richard Williams sitting in the front porch swing I'd helped Christopher install last summer, looking every inch the proud father of the homeowner. My phone buzzed with a text message 20 minutes later. Christopher. Sorry, Dad. Party was a last-minute thing. Didn't want to overwhelm the space with too many people. I stared at that message for a long time. Too many people? There had to be 50 guests in those photos. Professional catering, a DJ setup, decorations that cost more than most people spend on their entire wedding reception. But somehow there wasn't room for the man who'd made the down payment possible. I typed back, "Would have been nice to know about it." His response came fast. "We're trying to keep things simple right now. Maybe we can do dinner soon." Dinner. After 16 months of $800 monthly support, after co-signing his business loan, after being there every time he needed advice or money or both, he wanted to take me to dinner sometime soon. I set the phone down and walked out to my workshop. The familiar smell of sawdust and motor oil usually calmed me, but not tonight. Max followed me out, and settled in his usual spot near the workbench, watching with those intelligent brown eyes that seemed to understand everything. I ran my hands along the half-finished restoration project sitting on my workbench, a 1962 Telecaster that belonged to a session musician in Nashville. He'd shipped it down after finding my work through word-of-mouth referrals. The neck needed complete refurbishing, the electronics rewired, the finish stripped and reapplied. Honest work that paid honest money and left both parties satisfied with the result. Unlike my relationship with my son, apparently. The envelope arrived Thursday morning while I was having coffee and reading the sports section. Thick, cream-colored paper with my name written in Michelle's precise handwriting. Hand-delivered sometime overnight and tucked between my screen door and frame like a secret message. No return address, no postmark. Just Anthony Patterson in dark blue ink, the kind you use for important documents. I carried it to the kitchen table and opened it with my pocket knife, the same buck knife I'd carried for 20 years. The blade sliced through the envelope cleanly, and the contents made my morning coffee taste like ash. The letterhead read, Premier Auto of Tampa Bay. Below that, in clean block letters, Invoice, Michelle Patterson. Holiday gift, family contribution share, amount due, $25,000, due date, December 31st. Attached with a yellow sticky note in Michelle's handwriting. We figured you'd want to be part of this special gift. Richard is covering the other half. Payment needed by end of month so we can complete the purchase. Thanks, Dad. I read it 3 times, each reading making me angrier. They'd bought Michelle a BMW, a $50,000 BMW X5 based on the model listed in the invoice, and decided I should cover half the cost. No phone call, no discussion. No, would you be interested in going in on this gift? Just an assumption that I'd write a check for more money than most people make in 6 months. The sticky note called me Dad, but I hadn't been dad enough to warrant an invitation to their housewarming. I was dad enough to foot half the bill for a luxury car, but not dad enough to be included in family celebrations. I walked to my home office and pulled out the filing cabinet where I kept Christopher's business records. Bank statements showing 16 months of $800 transfers totaling $12,800. The wire transfer receipt for his down payment, $15,000. Various equipment purchases and travel expenses I'd covered when his cash flow was tight. Another $2,400. Total support over the past year and a half, $30,200. All given freely, all given with love and pride in my son's success, all apparently taken for granted. I sat back in my desk chair and did some thinking. Really deep thinking, the kind you do when you realize that people you trust have been playing you for a fool. Then I picked up the phone and called Laura Thompson from the Rotary Club. Laura's been practicing law in Tampa for 25 years, specializes in business contracts and family legal issues. More importantly, she's straight-talking and doesn't sugarcoat bad news. Laura, it's Anthony Patterson. I need some advice about a business loan I co-signed. Can you look at some paperwork? Of course, Anthony. How soon do you need to see me? How about this afternoon? Laura Thompson's office still smelled like coffee and paper, same as it had for the 15 years I'd known her through Rotary Club meetings. Her desk held the same clay owl figurine her daughter made in 3rd grade, now chipped at one eye, but still holding its place of honor next to her computer monitor. She looked up from her reading glasses when I walked in, manila folder in hand containing every piece of paper related to Christopher's business loan. Anthony, you sounded stressed on the phone. What's going on? I settled into the leather chair across from her desk and spread out the documents. I need you to look at this business loan I co-signed for Christopher. Something doesn't feel right about the whole situation. Laura pulled the papers toward her, scanning the loan application and terms. Her expression changed as she read, eyebrows drawing together in that way lawyers get when they spot trouble. She flipped through several pages, then turned to her computer and started typing. Anthony, when you signed these documents, did Christopher explain exactly what you were agreeing to? He said they needed a co-signer for better terms. Standard business loan stuff. I leaned forward. Why? She turned her monitor toward me, showing a document I'd never seen before. This isn't just a co-signature. According to the filed paperwork with the state, you're listed as a 40% business partner in Patterson Consulting Solutions, LLC. Your tax returns were used to qualify for the loan amount, and legally, you're entitled to 40% of all business profits. The words hit me like cold water. That's not what he told me. Did you receive any partnership agreements to review? Any business reports? Quarterly statements? Profit distributions? Nothing. I didn't even know the business was making money. Laura's face went grim. Anthony, based on the loan application, Patterson Consulting reported $180,000 in revenue last year. If you're a 40% partner, you should have received at least $30,000 in distributions after expenses. I felt the room spin slightly. Not only had Christopher excluded me from his housewarming party, not only had he sent me a bill for his wife's car, but he'd been essentially stealing from me for over a year. Money that was legally mine, money that could have paid for that BMW twice over. What are my options here? Laura leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. Several. You could demand an immediate partnership dissolution and accounting of all business assets. You could file for fraud, given that your signature was obtained under false pretenses. Or, she paused, studying my face. You could use this information strategically. What do you mean? You have legal grounds to demand immediate repayment of your share of business assets, plus retroactive profit distributions. Given the revenue numbers, we're talking about substantial money, probably more than they can liquid immediately. It would force them to either buy out your partnership stake or liquidate business assets. I drove home in a fog, Laura's words echoing in my head. 40% partner, $30,000 in distributions I'd never received, business revenue I'd never been told about. Everything I thought I knew about my relationship with Christopher had been turned inside out in a single afternoon. At home, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and started making lists. On one side, everything I'd given Christopher over the past 16 months. On the other side, everything he'd taken from me. Not just the money, but the respect, the inclusion, the basic courtesy of treating me like family. The numbers told a clear story. I'd provided $30,200 in direct support, plus guaranteed a business loan that was generating profits I'd never seen. Meanwhile, Christopher was hosting parties without inviting me and expecting me to pay for his wife's luxury car purchases. Max wandered into the kitchen and rested his head on my foot, sensing my mood the way dogs do. I scratched behind his ears and made my decision. That weekend, I took action. First, I went to the bank and canceled the automatic $800 monthly transfer that had been running for 16 months. The teller, a young woman who'd processed the same transfer dozens of times, looked surprised. "Is there a problem with the account, Mr. Patterson?" "No problem. Just time to stop supporting people who don't appreciate it." Next, I opened my phone and composed 3 identical text messages. One to Christopher, one to Michelle, and one to Richard Williams. Each message contained a payment notification. $10. The memo line was small, but I used every character. "This is what you're worth to me now." I sent all 3 messages simultaneously, then powered off my phone. Let them figure out what that meant. Sunday morning, I sat down with my laptop and created an invoice of my own. It took most of the day to itemize everything properly, but I wanted the record to be complete and accurate. 16 months of business equipment support at $800 per month, $12,800. Down payment contribution documented via bank wire, $15,000. Equipment purchases, travel expenses, and miscellaneous business costs, $2,400. Partnership distribution shortfall, based on legal consultation, $30,000. Total amount due, $60,200. At the bottom, I added, partnership dissolution notice attached per legal counsel. All business assets purchased with partnership funds to be returned or compensated at fair market value. Failure to respond within 30 days will result in formal legal action. I printed it on good paper, had it notarized at the bank Monday morning, and sent it certified mail to both Christopher's home and business addresses. Laura had prepared the partnership dissolution paperwork, complete with asset accounting demands and profit distribution calculations. Then I went home, poured myself a bourbon, and waited for the phone to ring. It didn't take long. By Tuesday evening, my voicemail was full of messages. Christopher's voice getting progressively more agitated with each call. Michelle crying on the phone about family loyalty and overreacting. Even Richard Williams left a message, suggesting I was having some kind of senior moment and needed to think about what's best for everyone. I listened to each message exactly once, then deleted them all. I wasn't interested in explanations or excuses or guilt trips. The legal documents spoke for themselves, and so did 16 months of being taken for granted. Wednesday afternoon, Christopher showed up at my house unannounced. I saw his car pull into the driveway while I was working in the garage, restoring a 1965 Mustang convertible for a customer in Clearwater. Max lifted his head from his favorite spot near the workbench, but didn't bother getting up. Even the dog knew this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. Christopher walked into my garage like he owned the place, expensive leather shoes clicking on the concrete floor. He was dressed for the office, khakis, button-down shirt, the kind of outfit that said he'd taken time off from important business to deal with his unreasonable father. "Dad, we need to talk." I kept working on the Mustang's carburetor, hands steady despite the adrenaline pumping through my system. 40 years of engineering work had taught me that some problems required patience and precision, not emotional outbursts. "Nothing to discuss, Christopher. The legal documents spell everything out pretty clearly." "You're being ridiculous. It was just one party. We didn't think you'd enjoy that kind of crowd." I set down my wrench and looked at him directly. "What kind of crowd was that exactly? The kind that included your father-in-law sitting in the place of honor while the man who made your down payment possible wasn't even invited? The kind that celebrated the house I helped buy while I found out about it from a plumber?" His face flushed red. "Michelle's family has different expectations. Stop." I held up my hand. "Don't blame your wife for your choices. You're 29 years old, Christopher. You made the decision not to invite me, and you made the decision to send me a bill for a car I never agreed to help buy." He shifted uncomfortably, glancing around the garage at the tools and projects that represented decades of honest work. "Look, maybe we handled the party wrong, but this legal thing is crazy. You're talking about destroying my business over a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" I wiped my hands with a shop rag, taking my time. "Christopher, you used my name and credit to qualify for a business loan, then never told me I was legally a 40% partner. You've been collecting profits from a partnership I didn't even know I had. How much money have you made that rightfully belongs to me?" He looked away, jaw working. "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple. According to Laura Thompson's review of the paperwork, your business generated $180,000 in revenue last year. As a 40% partner, I should have received profit distributions of at least $30,000. Instead, I got invited to help pay for your wife's BMW. The silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant hum of air conditioning and Max's occasional snoring from his spot by the workbench. Christopher stared at the oil stains on the garage floor, and for a moment he looked like the kid who used to help me change spark plugs in this same space. "I didn't mean for it to get this complicated," he finally said. "But it did get complicated, didn't it? And instead of being honest with me, you decided to keep taking my money while treating Richard Williams like the father you wished you had." That hit home. His head snapped up, eyes flashing with anger. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I stepped closer, keeping my voice level but letting 16 months of frustration show through. "You want to talk about fair? I supported your business for over a year, never missed a payment, never complained when you needed extra help. And when you finally achieved something worth celebrating, you celebrated it with everyone except the man who made it possible." Christopher's shoulders sagged. "Can we fix this? Can things go back to how they were?" I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw someone I didn't recognize anymore. The boy who used to bring me coffee in the garage while I worked on weekend projects had become a man who could exclude his father from family celebrations while expecting unlimited financial support. "Christopher, things can never go back to how they were. But they can go forward on honest terms. Pay the invoice, buy out my partnership share at fair market value, transfer your business loan to someone else's credit, and understand that respect isn't something you can take back once you've thrown it away." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly and walked toward the garage door. At the threshold, he turned back. "I'm sorry it came to this, Dad." "So am I, son. So am I." 3 months later, I received a certified check for $65,000, full payment of the invoice plus accrued interest and partnership buyout. No note, no apology, just payment in full and legal documents dissolving our business relationship. I deposited the check and used part of the money to upgrade my workshop equipment. New lathe, professional spray booth, better lighting throughout the garage. The kind of setup that would let me take on bigger restoration projects, and maybe teach some classes for other guys interested in learning traditional woodworking and metalwork. That's how I met the Thursday night crew. Started as a basic woodworking class at the community college, but most of the guys were retired engineers, contractors, and mechanics like me. Men who understood the satisfaction of building something with their own hands, and the importance of honest work. Now we meet every Thursday in my garage, working on individual projects and helping each other solve problems. Gary Bradley is restoring a 1970 Chevelle. Steve Morrison builds custom fishing rods. Jerry Santos makes furniture for his grandkids. We share tools, knowledge, and the occasional beer, but nobody asks for money, and nobody takes credit for work they didn't do. Most importantly, nobody gets excluded from celebrations they helped make possible. Christopher and I exchange Christmas cards now, the kind with generic holiday messages and family photos. He sends pictures of his kids occasionally. I have 2 grandsons I barely know. I send appropriate gifts for birthdays and holidays, nothing extravagant, nothing that creates obligations or expectations. It's not the relationship I wanted with my son, but it's the one his choices created. And I've learned something important about love and boundaries. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their actions without cushioning the fall. Michelle's BMW sits in their driveway when I drive past their neighborhood occasionally. It's a beautiful car, perfectly maintained, probably everything she hoped it would be. I wonder sometimes if she knows what it really cost. Not just the money, but the relationship between a father and son that could have been something special. The handmade tool chest I originally crafted for Christopher's housewarming still sits in my workshop, holding my everyday tools. It's beautiful work, solid walnut construction that will last generations. Every joint is perfect, every surface smooth as glass. The kind of gift that says, "I'm proud of you," without needing words. Someday I might give it to one of my Thursday night guys, or maybe to Jerry's grandson, who's starting to show real interest in woodworking. It deserves to go to someone who will appreciate both the craftsmanship and the sentiment behind it. Max is getting older now, moves a little slower around the workshop, but he still keeps me company while I work. He doesn't ask for anything more than food, water, and the occasional scratch behind the ears. There's something to be said for that kind of honest relationship. You know exactly where you stand, and nobody pretends to be something they're not. Late at night, when the garage is quiet and the work is done, I sometimes think about what could have been different. If Christopher had been honest about the business partnership, if he'd included me in his celebration instead of treating me like an embarrassment, if he'd asked instead of assuming when it came to expensive gifts. But mostly, I think about what I learned from the whole experience. You can't buy respect with money, and you can't maintain relationships built on taking advantage of someone's love and generosity. Family bonds are earned through honest behavior and maintained through mutual respect, not financial support and blind loyalty. Until someone shows you through their actions that they value your presence as much as your payments, it's better to keep both to yourself. The hardest lesson a father can learn is that sometimes the greatest gift you can give your children is the consequences of their own choices. Because real respect can only grow from understanding that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's just enablement dressed up in good intentions.